What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today my name is Priscilla. I am a Nigerian women's wear designer based in London. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to draft the pattern for a fly as well as the waistband. And because I believe so much in practicality, I'm actually going to test the pattern towards the end of the video to see if it works and if I need to make any changes so that it fits me better. So I already have videos showing you how to make the trouser pattern, how to adjust it, how to add pockets, and I'm going to be linking them down below if you haven't seen them already. But I just want to jump straight into this because I've never done a fly from scratch on my own. So you know when you're like half nervous, half excited, half worried, like parts and parts of different things because you really don't know how this is going to come out. I've done a bunch of research and I would like to thank one particular lady. I think she's called Diana. I'll put her name somewhere on the screen, but her tutorial was the most useful out of all the ones I watched. And if you don't understand mine, please go ahead and watch hers and maybe that would help you as well. So if you'd like to see how to make this pattern as well as the testing, then keep on watching. Let's actually make this pattern. Let's make this pattern. Let's see if it works. And Jesus help me, I hope it does work. I got together the following tools to ensure this tutorial goes smoothly. I have my roll of pattern paper, which I always link down below if you're curious. I also have some simple calico to be testing the pattern. I have my pattern master, which is crucial for curved lines. I have my tape, marker pen, as well as the trouser pattern, which I've already done in a previous tutorial. So please check the description box for the link to that video. So the first thing we're going to be doing is to plan the waistband. So this particular pattern was really high up my waist, and if I add a waistband to the natural waist of this one, it will be way too high for me. So I'm going to plan the waistband into this pattern here. So I decided to go for a waistband that is 2 inches wide. So this is 2 inches minus the seam allowance in like along the waistline. And I'm just going ahead to draw a line that is going to become the hem of the waistband. So the next thing I'm doing here is to fold away the dart because I don't want the waistband to have darts in there. I just want it to be like a smooth piece of material on the left or the right hand side that fits into the waist of the rest of the trouser. So once I've folded in that dart, I'm going to use a piece of sellotape to just hold it down flat and then add some more tapes to keep the pattern flat on this fresh pattern paper that is underneath. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace around the waist, around the side, around the center front because I want to keep that same shape. So to get that blue line that we just created, I'm going to go in with this tool here to create holes through this pattern onto the fresh pattern that's underneath, and that would enable me to get the exact same line for the waistband. So I'm just going in here to connect my dots or my dash lines on the top, on the hem, on the side, as well on the center front. I'm also going to add a notch where the dart sits, so when it's time for me to stitch the waistband into the waistline of the trouser, I know where the dart is supposed to be. So I'm just going in here to draw my 1 cm seam allowance around the waist, the center and the side, and I'm going to add 1 centimeter to the hem so this fits into the waistline of the trouser. So I'm just going ahead to add the green line and the description, how many pieces I need. Naturally you would need 2, but because I want the waistline to finish clean, I'm going to cut 4 pieces for this front. So after I'm done adding all of my notches and other necessary points, I'm going to extend the front by 3.5 centimeters because when you add the fly, you are going to extend your center front by 3.5 as well. So in order for the waistband to cover up that fly extension nicely, you need to extend the waistband as well. So I'm just going ahead to extend it from the natural center front line, not this one that I just crossed out because that's the seam allowance line. So I'm just connecting the center front to the extension point, which is going to become, you know, that point that cleans off the front of your fly. So this is what the front waistband looks like, and I'm just going ahead to cut it out before moving ahead to the next step of this tutorial. Once we've cut out the waistband, I'm going to go ahead and add a 1 centimeter seam allowance to the hem of our new waistline, because what this will allow you to do is to successfully stitch the waistband to this new waistline without losing any measurement. But what we have lost, however, is some of the darts because we took away from that waist of the trouser pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and extend the dart by 5 centimeters downwards, ensuring to transfer the same width from the old waistline to the new waistline. So I'm just going in here to draw that dart shape that we're familiar with, which is that triangular shape that goes from point A, B, and to C. So once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and cut away the old waistline because we will not be needing that for this front panel of the trouser. With the old dart gone, I'm just going to go ahead and double check that this waist actually sits into the waistband nicely. So I'm just pretend folding in the darts, and I'm just going to match my notches, my side as well as my center front to see if the pattern is actually making sense. So after that, once you're happy with your extended waistband and your waistband in general, the next thing you need to do is to extend your center front by the same width that you extended your waistband, which is 3.5 centimeters. And to do that, we need extra pattern paper. So I've gone ahead and I've taped down extra pattern paper, and I'm drawing in my 3.5 extension line. So this extension line you measure from the center front line, and then we're going to curve in the end into sort of where your hip line is. So mine was about 1 centimeter below my hip line. You want to draw in a nice curve, which is going to become the bottom of your fly. I haven't really seen anybody do their bottom fly straight. Usually what I've seen is this sort of smooth S curve that goes back into the crouch line. So it has like a natural finish and it sits nicely even on the inside of your trouser. So once that is done, I'm just going in to write how much I extended my center front by, which is 3.5 centimeter. This is usually enough to make a nice looking fly. Add any other information I need, and I would need to repeat this for the back. So you want the front to match the back, meaning you have to create a corresponding waistband. You have to take away that old waist, you have to extend the dart. Essentially just repeat the same thing you did for the front, for the back. So I'm just going in here to take my front waistband and mark across how wide it is. At this point it's about 3 inches because you know we added a hem allowance to the front. So I'm just marking that same 3 inches on the center back along the waist and inwards here like this. So when I connect these dash lines, I would have the hem for my waistband. So I'm just going in here to draw the rest of the necessary lines before going in with a marker pen to trace off the side, the waist, the center front, and any other crucial points that I need. Going in with my tracing wheel, I'm going to trace along that blue line, which is going to become the hem of my waistband. And now I'm just refining my lines, connecting my dots so my pattern is visible and clear. So now that I'm done doing the sides, you can cut it off like this if you want. You don't really have to draw in the seam allowance line, but I just like to do it anyway so you understand what I'm working with. So I'm just writing any necessary information I need, how many I need to cut, as well as my grain line. So once that is done, I'm going to work on the actual back pattern, extend that dart by how much I took from the waist. For the back, I extended it by about 5 centimeters as well, and I'm just drawing in the new dart line before cutting off the old waistline and ending up with a waist that is similar to the front, so the front actually matches the back. I am going in here to cut away the old waist for the back, and once I'm done doing that, I'm just going to pretend fold in the darts to see if the waistband actually matches into the waistline of the back trouser. So far so good. So these are my patterns done. This is the center front, which actually has that extension to accommodate the fly. This is one of the easiest methods I found. There's actually a way that you can cut that extension as a separate piece and then stitch it into the front of the trouser, but I just thought that was a bit too complicated, and from everything I saw online, Pinterest and on YouTube, I just think this method is sort of the easiest way to go. So now that I'm done doing all of my patterns, I'm going to go ahead and test. This is the moment of truth to see if these patterns actually work. So I'm just going to cut out my pattern in calico. I'm going to cut the trouser pieces as well, but I'm not going to cut the full trouser length. I'm going to cut it to around my knee. It was around 16 inches long. I just thought cutting the entire trouser was a waste, and these are all of my pieces cut out and ready. I also got myself a short zip which was about 8 inches long. I went ahead and I stitched up my darts, so for the back as well as the front, I just pressed everything nice and neatly so it's ready to work with. So like I said earlier on, I cut 2 pairs for every panel for the waistband because I want to finish off the waistline neatly across. So now that I have all of my pieces ready to go, let's actually make this fly. So I've notched my center front points, and the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to place the zip along that place there, and I'm going to mark where the zip teeth ends and cut a tiny snip there. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going to take a ruler and draw a short horizontal line like this, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a line that is the center front line of the trouser. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going to take this to my machine and I am going to sew from that crouch point to where that angular point for that horizontal and vertical line means, and I'm going to use a looser stitch for the top half. So now I'm sewing with a normal stitch. I'm going to reverse, secure it there, and then I'm going to adjust the stitch length to the widest one I have, and I'm going to sew that center front line all the way to the top just to secure the center front in place. So you can either leave it or you can just cut tiny snips through to make that stitch easier to remove later on. So after this, I'm going to take this piece to my iron to just press it nice and flat so it's easier to actually stitch the zip later on. I have used a chalk to write what side is the left and what side is the right, because the first thing you need to do is to place the right side of your zip against the right side of the front, and you want to put the teeth as close to that center front stitch before going ahead to pin it down and stitch it on only that right side of this sort of fly extension we have here. So I'm going to take this to my machine and change the footer to a zip footer. So this is what my zip footer looks like. It usually has one toe in comparison to the normal footer that I would use. So I'm just going ahead and I'm sewing slowly. I'm going to open up the zip so it allows the feet and the rest of the machine to actually do its work. So once I've opened it up a little bit, I'm going to drop my footer again and continue sewing. And then when I get to where the teeth is, I'm going to pull it all the way to the end so I can sew this side of the zip tape to this side of the extension fly that we have here. So once I'm done stitching it, I'm going to take it out, fold the zip on the right side and do a top stitch that is about 0.3 centimeters wide. In my opinion, I think this step is optional. It just prevents the zip from getting caught in the center front sort of seam. So this is what the zip looks like right now, and you're going to flip it towards the left side, grab the left side of the zip tape and the left side of the zip extension fly, and you're going to sew that side to only the extension, not to the actual left, just to this piece right here. So I'm going back to my machine and I'm starting from the bottom, stitching all the way to the top, still using my zip footer and a normal straight stitch. So once that is done, this is what the zip would look like. It's coming together gradually. At this point, I was so glad. I was like, oh my god, it is actually working. So once this is done, we are going to turn the trouser to the front, well, the front at this point, and we're going to top stitch on the left side. So I'm just going ahead to use a pin to mark that notch, which is where the zip teeth actually ends, and that pin is going to be my indicator for when I need to start curving my stitch inwards towards the center front. So the top stitch you do is about 3.5 centimeters wide, which was how much you extended that front to start with. And I'm going to start from the top all the way to the bottom, keeping in mind that your extensions are open underneath. And then when you get to that point where your notch is, you are going to close the extensions inside. So you will fold them together, drop your footer, and then continue to sew until you get to about 1 centimeter below that notch point. So I say don't go into the curve too much, else it's going to be difficult to stitch because that part is not exactly straight. So this is what the fly looks like from inside. Towards the bottom is stitched close together, and the top part is open so you can easily get into your pants. So the next thing you need to do is to rip open that loose stitch that we made. So this is the center front point, and I'm just pulling open that stitch line to reveal your zip. So this is what the zip looks like. Hallelujah, we actually made it. It opens up quite nicely. The zip guard looks great. The fly looks clean and neat. You can go ahead and give it a press at this point to relax all of the seams. So next up, I'm going to finish the rest of this sort of sample we're making. I'm going to sew up the center back seam, as you can see here. And once that is stitched up, I'm going to place right sides together of the back to the front. I'm going to pin together the side seams as well as the inner leg seam so I can sew them all together. Once that's all done, once the side seams are stitched together as well as the inner leg, it is time to actually work on the waistband of this particular piece. So I already have my pieces cut out. I have 2 pairs for each panel of the front and the back. So I have a total of 8 pieces. So we're going to work on one piece of the waistband for now. So I'm going to put aside the other sets. So I have 2 for the front and 2 for the back. So I'm going to sew together the center back pieces and then join the sides of the back pieces to the sides of the front pieces. So I'm just going to do this quickly, take it to my machine, making sure to pin them first so I get the sides that are supposed to actually be together. Another thing that you can do is to make notches, 1 notch for front pieces and 2 notches for back pieces, so you know which side actually goes together. So I'm just sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance using my loser stitch because this is just to test the pattern. So I've gone ahead and I've done the same process for my 2 sets of waistbands, and I'm going to join them together along the center front, around the waist and down to the other side of the center front, so I have one piece at the end of the day. So I'm just going ahead to do this nice and smoothly, getting to that corner, turning it around and sewing along the entire waist from one side to the other side of the waistband. Moving on to actually face the waistband into the waistline of this short or mini trouser that we're making, I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys what the waistband looks like right now. So I've stitched it up to make one piece, I've turned it inside out, and I've pressed it nice and flat. It should look inside like this somewhat. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the zip of the trouser here, and I'm going to take the waistband and place it like this along the center back. So when you stitch it up around this point, you fold it and you finish off stitching on the outside. So I'm just pinning together crucial points, which is center back to center back, center front to center front, side seam to side seam. So by the time I take this to my machine to sew, I don't have to think too much about which side should actually go together with which side. So I've pinned together all of my points, and I'm going to sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance from the left hand side to the right hand side, or whichever way you want to go. So because of the extension that we made on our patterns, you can see there is enough room to cover the fly as well as the zip guard for this particular waistband. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew on my domestic machine using a normal straight stitch on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, going nice and slowly. Take your time sewing this because you are sewing 2 curved points together, so there is no rush whatsoever. Just take your time slowly stitching them together. So once you've sewn it all together, it should look like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold it sort of outwards so you see the clean finished waistband that we have created because we did 2 pieces that we stitched together. So now to finish off the waistband, I'm just going into folding about 1 centimeter like so, and use a pin to secure it. Some people would actually use hand stitching to finish off this particular step, but because I'm just trying to show you guys how to finish this waistband like this on the outside, I'm just going to stitch it up all the way. The inside looks really nice and clean. I'm really happy with that, and I'm just going to go ahead and pin this all the way across, folding 1 centimeter inwards and securing it with a pin. I'm just going to take this to my domestic machine and use an edge stitch that is about 3 cm wide and just top stitch on the outside of the waistband, because that's what you see when you look at the waist of the trouser. If you have the time, you can go ahead and use like hand stitch to finish it up nice and smoothly. It would look just as good. So I'm just going ahead to finish up the rest of the waist, and this is the finished outcome. The pattern actually worked, but I'm going to put it on to see if it fits my body nicely and if I have to make any changes. Alrighty, so this is what the waistband looks like finished. I just put a pin in the front so it just stays nice and flat there. I think it fits rather nicely. I appreciate the fact that especially that it curves into my waist because I have wide hips and a narrow waistline, and I even noticed that it was a bit too wide for the back. As you can see, about 1 cm in the back here that's too loose, so I'm going to take that away from the pattern and just smooth it out to the natural waistline of the trouser. But aside that, I really am very happy with the fly. When I was sewing it, I was not even sure it was going to come out that nice, but you see when you open your legs, it just opens up nicely in the middle like that. The waistband sits nicely, and if you open it up, it finishes off in such a way that it closes off this edge. So if I had overlocked this end, it would have been a nice smooth finished edge, or if I had used like binding, it would have been nice and clean even when you open the trouser. And the same thing goes for the other side. So my first fly done from start to finish. I am so pleased and happy with it. You would either put a button or like a hook here, or you can just decide to make it shorter so it finishes like there on the trouser. The choice is really yours, but so far so good. I like it. What do you guys think? I'm actually really happy with the outcome. I was so worried, but yay. And there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for staying up until the end. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more pattern tutorials, more sewing tutorials, or if you have any questions or ideas, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. So until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you're watching this video from. It's time for me to go out and enjoy this sunny weather, because we only get this kind of weather once in a blue moon here. So I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.